Hey everyone, welcome. If you're cramming for your medical lab certification exam, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're doing a super focused, high-yield review of one of the biggest topics you'll face, CLIA 88.
Okay, let's cut right to the chase. You've got a board exam coming up. My mission here? In just the next few minutes, we're going to lock down the absolute essentials of lab regulation so you can walk into that testing center feeling totally prepared. You ready? Let's dive in.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what CLIA 88 actually is. Then we'll get into how tests are categorized, who the big regulatory players are, and then, and this is a huge one for your exam, we'll really master lab quality. Finally, we'll wrap it all up with patient rights and illegal stuff. Let's do this.
All right, first up, what is CLIA 88? Seriously, think of this as the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. You absolutely have to know this inside and out for your exam, so let's get it locked in right now. So, what in the world is CLI 88? Well, it stands for the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments of 1988. Basically, it's the big federal rule book that makes sure any lab test performed on a human in the US is top-notch, reliable, and accurate. And here's a key connection you have to make for your exam. CLI is run by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. They're the ones in charge. Got it?
Okay, moving on. Now, CLIA is smart. It knows that a simple little glucose check isn't the same as, complex genetic sequencing. So it breaks all lab tests down into 4 different tiers of complexity. And here are those 4 levels you've got to have memorized. We start at the bottom with waved tests, things like a rapid strep test or a urine dipstick. Super simple. Then you've got provider-performed microscopy, or PPM. And then we climb up to moderate and high complexity testing. Think a complete blood count or DNA analysis. Now here's the most important takeaway for your exam. This complexity level determines everything. I mean everything. Who's allowed to run the test, how strict the QC has to be, all of it.
So, who's actually making sure labs are following all these rules? Let's jump into Section 3 and meet the referees of the laboratory world. Okay, so while CMS is the top dog at the federal level, they don't do all the inspections themselves. Labs can get accredited by other big organizations, and the 3 you need to remember are CAP, the College of American Pathologists, TJC, which is the Joint Commission, and COLA. These guys have something called deeming authority. That's a fancy way of saying if you pass their inspection, CMS automatically considers you good to go. You meet the CLIA standards. And hey, just as a little bonus fact, while CLIA is the law of the land here in the US, on the global stage, the gold standard is something called ISO 15189. It's just good to have that name tucked away in the back of your mind.
Okay, everyone, lean in for this one. Section 4. I want you to mentally circle, star, and highlight this part of your study guide. Mastering lab quality is without a doubt the heart of your exam. Getting this right is how you're going to rack up some serious points. First up, let's talk quality control, or QC. This is what you do every single day. You run control samples, specimens where you already know the answer, to make sure your instruments are working perfectly. It's kind of like a baker using a measuring cup. You trust it to be accurate every single time. QC is all about catching those tiny little drifts or trends before they have any chance of affecting a real patient's result. And how do we track all this QC data? With these 2 heavy hitters, LeVay-Jennings charts and Westgard rules. I'm telling you, you will see these on your exam. They're the statistical tools we use to look at our QC data and make the call, is this run good to go, or do we have a problem we need to investigate? Next up, let's clear up 2 words that trip people up all the time: accuracy and precision. Accuracy is getting the right answer. It's hitting the bullseye on the dartboard. Precision, on the other hand, is getting the same result over and over and over again. It's hitting the exact same spot on the dartboard every time, even if that spot isn't the bullseye. For a test to be trustworthy, you need both. You got to be hitting the bullseye, and you got to be hitting it consistently. And this is why QC is so important. It helps us spot 2 different kinds of errors. First, you have a systematic error. This is a consistent issue, something that causes a trend or a shift on your LeVay-Jennings chart. Maybe an instrument is slowly losing its calibration. Then you have a random error. This is just a one-off, unpredictable fluke. A bubble in a reagent, something totally out of the blue. Knowing the difference is key to fixing the problem.
Okay, so if QC is like checking the engine oil every day, then quality assurance, or QA, is the entire safety and design of the car. It's the big, overarching system. QA isn't just about the test itself. It covers the total testing process. That means the pre-analytical phase, how the sample was collected and handled, the analytical phase, which is the test itself, and the post-analytical phase, making sure the result gets to the right person correctly.
And this brings us to what is maybe the #1 rule of QA under CLIA. You document everything. A sample arrived at the wrong temperature? You document it. A result was delayed? You document it. The golden rule in the lab is, and you should tattoo this on your brain, if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. Seriously, remember that for the test, and remember it for your whole career.
All right, let's bring it all home with our final section, patient rights and legal rules. This is where we see how all these technical details actually impact real people and hold up in legal situations. This is why it all matters so much.
Of course, we have to talk about HIPAA. We all know what it is, right? The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. But in the lab, it's incredibly important. We're handling some of the most sensitive data a person has. Protecting that information isn't just a good idea, it's a fundamental legal and ethical duty. Now, listen up, because this is a classic board exam question. Patients now have the legal right to ask for and receive a copy of their own lab report directly from the lab. But, and this is the part you cannot forget, you are not required, and in fact, you're not supposed to, interpret those results for them. Your job is to provide the accurate report and then firmly but politely refer them back to their doctor for any questions. Period.
And last but not least, let's talk about chain of custody. This is the procedure for any sample that might end up in court. We're talking drug tests, legal blood alcohol levels, stuff like that. You have to create a perfect, unbroken documentation trail. Think of it like a relay race. The baton, which is the specimen, can never be left unattended, and you have to know exactly who had it at every single moment. So what does that look like? It starts with a secure collection, often with a witness watching. Then comes obsessive labeling and paperwork. And finally, the sample has to be transported in a tamper-evident package. Every single person who handles it, from the collector to the courier to the tech, has to sign off. If there's even one tiny gap in that chain, a defense attorney can get the results thrown out of court. It has to be perfect.
So as we wrap up, we've gone through all this to help you ace your exam. But I want you to think bigger than that for a second. These rules about quality, accuracy, and patient rights, this isn't just test material. This is the promise we make to every single patient. So the real question is, how are you going to take these principles and live them out every single day in your career? Now go out there and absolutely crush that exam. You've got this.